You know that feeling when you've just spent like 40 minutes completely spaced out, mindlessly scrolling through your phone on the couch?
Oh, absolutely. It's so easy to do.
Right. But somehow finding just 15 minutes to organize your desk or answer one email or do a quick workout, it feels like trying to climb Mount Everest.
It is a profoundly universal frustration,
Yeah.
honestly. The friction of starting a productive task often feels physically heavy.
Yeah, heavy is the right word. And slipping into an unproductive task happens before we even realize we've done it.
Exactly.
And usually the immediate reaction is to just beat ourselves up. We call it laziness.
Right. We convince ourselves our willpower is just fundamentally broken or that we somehow lack discipline.
I do that all the time. But I realized something incredibly liberating today, looking through our sources. The problem isn't a character flaw.
Not at all.
It's actually just a mismatch in how our brain prioritizes rewards and how we're trying to force it to operate.
Yeah, because we are fighting against, millions of years of evolutionary wiring when we try to force ourselves to do the hard thing first.
Just based on sheer willpower alone.
Right. Willpower is a cognitive function managed by the prefrontal cortex, and it depletes rapidly. Relying on it to muscle through your daily tasks is just an exhausting, unsustainable way to live.
So today, our mission for this deep dive is to explore a workaround, a concept called the Premack Principle.
It's a fascinating one.
It really is. By connecting cognitive psychology, dog training methods, historical anecdotes, and applied behavior analysis, we are going to unpack a scientifically proven shortcut.
A way to hack our own psychology, essentially.
Exactly. The goal is to build better daily habits without needing to rely on that exhausting reserve of willpower.
Because this principle shifts us away from the traditional punitive model of self-discipline.
Where you're constantly fighting yourself.
Right. Instead of fighting your urges, you actually learn to harness them. You take your natural existing desires, the things you already desperately want to do, and use them as combustible fuel for the tasks you usually procrastinate on.
Okay, so to really grasp how you can apply this in your own living room, we need to look at where the principle originated, because it completely shattered the scientific consensus back in the late 1950s.
It really did. The landscape of psychology was very rigid back then. But in 1959, an American psychologist named David Premack was working at the Yerkes Primate Biology Laboratory.
Wait, a primate lab, so this started with monkeys.
Chimpanzees, actually.
Yeah.
He was conducting research with chimps, most notably a pair named Sarah and Gussie.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah.
And at that time, scientists believed that for something to be considered a reward or a reinforcer in psychological terms, it had to be tied to basic biological survival.
So historically, scientists called these absolute consummatory responses. The idea was that only things like eating, drinking, or finding shelter could reliably reinforce an animal's behavior.
Exactly. The thought process was completely binary. Food is a reinforcer because it satisfies hunger. Water satisfies thirst. But Premack turned that entire framework of operant conditioning upside down.
How so?
Well, he proposed that reinforcement is relative, not absolute. Through his work with the chimps, he discovered that it's not the biological necessity of the item that matters.
It's what they actually want in that specific moment.
Yes, it's the probability that the subject wants to perform a specific action right then. He proved that any higher probability behavior can reinforce a lower probability behavior.
Okay, let me make sure I'm visualizing this correctly. If one of those chimps happens to be bored and has a higher probability of wanting to play with a puzzle toy than, say, eating a banana right then,
Yes, exactly.
then playing with the toy actually becomes the more powerful reinforcer for whatever task you want the chimp to do.
You've got it. The hierarchy of desires is fluid. This is what we often affectionately call grandma's rule when applied to everyday human life.
Oh, right, like the classic dinner table standoff. First eat your vegetables, then you can have dessert.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You are taking the less probable behavior, choosing to eat broccoli, and making the highly probable behavior, eating cake, entirely contingent on it.
It's a strict first-then sequence.
Exactly. First this, then that.
You know, it's essentially like paying a toll on a highway you already drive on.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Thanks. The toll is the boring task, the vegetables, or writing that tedious spreadsheet for work. And the open highway is the fun activity you were going to do anyway, like scrolling social media.
Right. You aren't inventing a new reward.
Yeah, you aren't trying to convince yourself that spreadsheets are suddenly fun. You're just taking the thing you already want to do and dropping a toll booth right in front of it.
The open highway of your desires is always there, and the brain is incredibly efficient at finding the fastest route to it. The Premack Principle is just the strategic science of deciding where to construct that toll booth.
So that you actually accomplish your goals along the way. So let's dig into the actual neurology and math of that motivation. Why does putting a toll booth in front of our fun activities manipulate our brain chemistry so effectively?
To understand the mechanism, we have to look under the hood at B.F. Skinner and the foundational theories of operant conditioning. Specifically, we're dealing with positive reinforcement here.
And just to clarify for everyone, in behavioral science, positive doesn't mean happy or good.
Right. It simply means adding a stimulus to strengthen a behavior.
Like Skinner putting a rat in a box. The rat accidentally presses a lever, a food pellet drops out. The food is added to the environment, so the lever-pressing behavior is strengthened because the rat wants more food.
Exactly. Premack took that basic concept and mapped it onto behavioral probabilities. So imagine you have a free evening at home. Statistically, based on your habits, there might be an 80% chance you'll choose to sit on the couch and watch a show.
Okay, so that is your high probability behavior, or high P.
Yes. And let's say there's only a 20% chance you'll choose to open your laptop and study for a certification exam. That's your low probability behavior, or low P.
So the underlying math dictates that if you make the 80% behavior strictly contingent on completing the 20% behavior, the television show transforms into a highly effective reinforcer for studying.
Yes, and neurologically, this works because you are leveraging dopamine anticipation.
Anticipation is huge.
It really is. The brain releases dopamine not just when you receive a reward, but when you anticipate it. By setting a firm rule, you attach the dopamine spike of watching TV to the act of opening your textbook.
But wait, let me play devil's advocate here. If I'm holding my own fun activities ransom until I do my chores, isn't that just a fancy form of bribery? I feel like I'm just bribing myself.
That is a very common skepticism. I hear that a lot. But there is a vital psychological distinction between the two. Bribery is reactive.
Reactive, like it happens after a problem starts.
Exactly. It usually happens during a problem behavior. Imagine a child throwing a massive tantrum in a grocery store because they want candy. The parent, desperate for quiet, offers them the candy to make them stop.
I see. That is a bribe, and it psychologically reinforces the tantrum. The brain learns a very toxic lesson. If I scream loudly enough, I get the candy.
Right. You are reacting to a failure in the environment. The Premack Principle, on the other hand, is what behavior analysts call an antecedent intervention.
Meaning it happens before the behavior.
Exactly. You establish a clear, non-negotiable contingency ahead of time. First, you finish your homework, then you can play video games. It works proactively to shape the brain's expectations.
So you avoid the conflict altogether. You're setting the rules of the game before the game starts, which takes the decision-making fatigue out of the moment.
Precisely.
Okay, so moving from the theory into practical application. How do you and I actually implement this? What is the step-by-step framework for hacking our habits today?
The implementation requires a very clear, actionable framework. Step one is to identify. You need to sit down and make 2 lists, and this requires brutal honesty.
I can imagine.
One list is your high probability behaviors.
The things I do on autopilot when I'm tired, checking Instagram, watching Netflix, making that third cup of coffee, playing a game on my phone.
Online shopping, the path of least resistance.
So guilty.
And your second list is your low probability behaviors, the things you know you should do, but constantly put off.
Doing the laundry, writing a report, exercising, making that difficult phone call. Okay, so I have my honest lists.
Right. Once you have them, step 2 is combine. You create a specific coupling between a low P and a high P behavior.
I imagine this can't just be a vague promise to myself like, oh, I'll relax after work, because my brain will just find a loophole and decide that after work starts at 2 p.m.
Yeah, your brain is too smart for that. Vague intentions are the enemy of habit formation. The brain needs a strict, undeniable first-then rule. I will not open social media until I write 500 words of my report.
Our sources actually highlighted some fantastic real-world examples of this in action.
Oh, yeah, like the programmer.
Right. A programmer struggling with focus started writing code in 25-minute Pomodoro sprints. Their specific reward was permission to watch exactly 1 YouTube video after the sprint was complete.
I love that one. And the grad student who forced themselves to write 500 words of their thesis before they were allowed to leave the house to buy their favorite expensive coffee.
Oh, that would absolutely work on me.
Right. One of the most effective applications is the temptation bundling technique. Like a gym goer who only allows themselves to listen to their absolute favorite podcast while they are physically on the treadmill.
That's brilliant. But there is a third step to this process, and it's kind of the glue that holds the entire system together, make it non-negotiable.
Yes. The toll booth doesn't open until the toll is fully paid.
But I can already hear people listening saying, look, I work from home, my couch is 2 feet from my desk, the TV remote is right there. How do I actually stop myself from just sitting on the couch?
That requires environmental design. If you cannot rely on your internal willpower to uphold the rule, you have to build external friction.
So literally moving the obstacle.
Right. Put the TV remote in a drawer in another room. Block the apps on your phone until a certain time. The reward must be immediate upon completion, but the rule cannot be broken prematurely.
Because if you cheat, like if you watch the YouTube video without writing the code, the entire psychological system breaks down. Your brain learns that the contingency is basically fake.
Exactly. You're training yourself not to trust your own rules.
But let's look at the mechanics of failure here for a second. What happens if I set this whole system up? My rule is, first I do the laundry, then I can check Instagram. But halfway through sorting my socks, I realize I just don't care about checking Instagram anymore.
You lose interest.
Yeah, I'm tired. I'm not in the mood for it. The reward loses its shine. Does the whole system just collapse?
That leads us directly into the advanced mechanics of behavioral psychology. Why do rewards sometimes fail? In applied behavior analysis, or ABA, there is a crucial concept called motivating operations, or MOs.
Okay, so what does that mean?
It means your desire for a reward isn't static. It fluctuates constantly based on your environment and your physical state.
So a reward is only a reward if the conditions are right in that specific moment.
Exactly. There are two main types of motivating operations. First, establishing operations. This is the mechanism where deprivation increases value.
Oh, I get it. Like, if I just went for a 5-mile run in the middle of July, a simple glass of tap water is suddenly the most valuable thing in the world to me. Deprivation established the water as a high-value reward.
Perfectly said. The value is established by the lack of it. Now, the flip side of that is an abolishing operation. This is when satiation decreases value.
So if you just chugged a gallon of water, offering you another glass of water as a reward for doing your homework is going to fail miserably.
Right. It has zero value as a reinforcer because your biological need is already satiated.
Bringing that back to my Instagram example, if I've already been doom scrolling on my phone for 3 hours on the couch, trying to use phone time as a reward to get up and do the dishes won't work, I'm already satiated.
Exactly. You've completely abolished the value of the reward by overindulging in it beforehand. You have to ensure you are somewhat deprived of your high-probability behavior for it to remain a powerful reward.
That makes so much sense.
And this leads to another massive hurdle: competing contingencies.
Competing contingencies.
Yeah. Let's say you set a firm rule. First, I have to clean the kitchen. Then I can watch the new episode of my favorite show.
Okay.
But while you're procrastinating, your partner walks into the living room, turns on the TV, and starts playing that exact episode anyway.
Oh, well, then the contingency is broken. I'm getting the sensory reward of watching the show without having to do the hard work of cleaning the kitchen.
Right. The reward is freely available in your environment without the required effort. Consequently, your motivation to clean the kitchen plummets to zero.
It's essentially inflation. If a government prints too much money, the dollar loses its value. If you give yourself free, unrestricted access to your rewards all day long, your internal currency for building habits becomes completely worthless.
That is a great way to look at it. You must tightly control the currency of your own attention and pleasure. And if you think about it, that need for a tightly controlled environment to manage these behaviors isn't just a modern human quirk.
Right, we see the exact same evolutionary baseline in how we train animals. The dog training applications and the sources were fascinating because they strip away all the complex human rationality and just look at raw behavioral drive.
Exactly. The American Kennel Club uses the Premack Principle extensively. Their core philosophy is that instead of fighting a dog's natural wild urges, you should actually use those exact urges as the reward.
So if you want a dog to wait patiently at the front door, the reward doesn't have to be a piece of kibble. The reward is the thing they are already desperate to do, which is run outside.
Yes. You require them to sit patiently, the low probability behavior, before you open the door, the high probability behavior.
Or loose leash walking. A dog desperately wants to pull ahead and sniff a bush. You don't yank the leash and yell at them. You require them to walk with a slack leash for 3 steps, the low probability behavior.
Right.
Then you give them a release command to go sniff the bush, the high probability behavior, even coming when called. You call the dog away from chasing squirrels, give them heavy praise when they return, and then immediately release them to go back to chasing the squirrels.
You aren't competing with the distraction. You are leveraging the distraction as the ultimate reinforcer. And this biological hardwiring translates seamlessly into human history, too. People have intuitively understood and used this long before David Premack gave it a scientific name in the 50s.
Yeah, Zhu Liang, the legendary Chinese military strategist, is a perfect example of this.
Oh, absolutely.
He trained his troops by using their absolute favorite activity, hunting in the mountains, as the specific reward for completing grueling military drills. First, you finish the exhausting drills, then you get to go hunting.
Roman legionnaires operated on the exact same logic. I mean, think about the sheer physical toll of getting soldiers to endure a 30-kilometer march carrying incredibly heavy gear.
And then demanding they dig defensive trenches the moment they arrive.
It's brutal. Commanders managed this by following that intense labor immediately with high-probability activities: gambling, bathing in the camp, dividing the spoils of war.
Even Benjamin Franklin, who is famous for his incredibly strict, highly optimized daily schedules, relied on this too.
He did.
He specifically scheduled his socializing and his music, the leisure activities he loved most, only after his demanding printing and reading work was finished for the day.
Because whether you are a Roman soldier, a Chinese general, a modern grad student, or a golden retriever, the brain calculates effort versus reward using the same basic circuitry.
It's so true. We often frame discipline as this act of denying ourselves pleasure. We think we have to suffer and buckle down and be miserable to be truly disciplined people.
That's the modern myth, yeah.
But historically, and even with our pets, the most disciplined structures actually rely on pleasure. They don't eliminate the fun, they just strategically reordered the sequence so the pleasure serves a purpose.
Reordering the sequence is the absolute key. However, whenever we discuss intentionally manipulating human reward systems, we do have to look at the guardrails.
Right. There are very real scenarios where applying this principle becomes counterproductive, or in some fields, even unethical. We aren't just simplistic robots you can endlessly program with treats and toll booths.
Exactly. Sometimes adding a reward to a situation can actually break a good habit. The primary psychological warning here is the overjustification effect.
The overjustification effect, what is the rule there?
The rule is simple but critical. You should never use external rewards for something a person already intrinsically enjoys doing.
So if someone is already doing the behavior for free, don't start paying them for it?
Right.
But why does that backfire so badly?
Imagine a child who naturally loves drawing. They will sit and draw for hours just because it brings them intrinsic joy. If you step in and apply the Premack Principle, saying, hey, if you draw for 20 minutes today, I'll give you a piece of candy.
Oh, I see. You are actively destroying their internal motivation.
Yes, because the brain experiences cognitive dissonance. It recalibrates and assumes, wait, I must not be drawing because I like it. I must be drawing just to get this candy. The drawing is just work.
Wow, you've shifted their motivation from internal to external.
And the tragedy of the overjustification effect is that once you stop providing the candy, they will likely stop drawing altogether. The external reward overwrites and wipes out the natural joy they used to feel.
That is a massive trap to avoid for parents, teachers, and managers. But beyond just losing motivation, there are also serious ethical boundaries regarding how this principle is applied in clinical settings, right?
Yes, specifically with an applied behavior analysis. While ABA heavily utilizes the Premack Principle to help individuals build life skills, modern ethical guidelines are very, very strict.
As they should be.
Absolutely. It is highly unethical to restrict access to basic human comforts just to use them as a bargaining chip for compliance. A practitioner cannot withhold access to a comfortable chair, a bathroom break, or basic food just to force someone to complete a task.
Because that crosses the line from reinforcement into actual coercion. There was also a specific mention in the sources about working with autistic individuals and stereotypic behaviors.
Yes. Historically, in older and widely criticized practices, some practitioners might have restricted a harmless stereotypic behavior like hand flapping, which often provides necessary sensory regulation for an autistic individual.
Just to use it as a high-probability reward for completing an academic task.
Exactly. And modern ethical ABA strongly prohibits this. You cannot hold someone's self-soothing mechanisms or basic bodily autonomy hostage to make an intervention effective.
That makes total sense. Bringing that ethical lens back to how we treat ourselves. We have to be careful not to turn our own lives into a rigid, miserable transactional economy.
We can be very cruel to ourselves.
We really can. We shouldn't hold our own basic needs, like eating a nutritious meal, getting enough sleep, or taking a hot shower hostage just to force ourselves to get through a daily to-do list. The toll booth should only be placed in front of the extra stuff. The Netflix binges, the endless scrolling, the online shopping.
Exactly. It is about leveraging your excess leisure time, not weaponizing your fundamental human needs against yourself.
Well, we have covered a massive amount of ground today. If you are tired of relying on superhuman willpower to get through your day, remember that you just don't have to. You
Hmm.
just need to map out your habits. Honestly, identify your high probability behaviors, the fun, easy, effortless stuff, and place them directly after your low probability behaviors.
The hard work you usually avoid.
Right. By simply reordering the sequence and tightly controlling your environment, you can build a sustainable, self-reinforcing habit loop. Let your natural desires do the heavy lifting for you.
It truly is a profound shift in how we manage our time.
Mm.
And I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, something that builds directly on this concept.
Lay it on us.
We spent this entire deep dive discussing how you can use the Premack Principle to control your own habits. But look at the modern digital world around you. Think about how free apps force you to sit through an unskippable 30-second advertisement.
Oh, wow. The ad is the ultimate low probability behavior. Nobody inherently wants to watch the ad.
Exactly. The app developers are forcing you to sit through that low probability behavior before you can play the mobile game or watch the video, which is your high probability behavior.
That is sneaky.
It is. Now that you understand the mechanics of the Premack Principle, ask yourself, where in your life are you using it to your advantage? And where is someone else actively using it on you?
That's a great question. The toll booths are everywhere, whether we're the ones building them or not. We started this conversation talking about the sheer frustration of mindlessly scrolling on your phone for 40 minutes instead of spending 15 minutes organizing your desk. Maybe the first step to taking back control of our time isn't throwing the phone away in disgust. It's just making the desk organization the required price of admission.